Good morning, students. Welcome back to online classes. We had been doing in the past three videos, we finished the reading and the explanation of the chapter, Unit 3, Section C, the shadow and the flash. We saw that Paul Ticklon and Lloyd Inwood they were very competitive with each other. They had a rivalry to be more successful than each other. So ultimately, this rivalry and this competitiveness to achieve better and to do better than the other, finally they met their end. They died fighting with each other. So that was the chapter. And now today in today's video we will discuss the question answers. So let's first know about the author. John Griffith London, born John Griffith Cheney, January 12, 1876 to November 22, 1916, was an American novelist, journalist, and social activist. A pioneer of commercial fiction and American magazines, he was one of the first American authors to become an international celebrity and earn a large fortune from writing. He was also an innovator in the genre that would later become known as science fiction. His famous works include The Call of the Wind and White Fang, as well as the short stories To Build a Fire and Odyssey of the North and Love of Life. He also wrote about South Pacific in stories such as The Pearls of Parley and The Heathen. Now let's see the short summary. The present story is a short excerpt from the story written by Jack London with the same name, The Shadow and the Flash. In the story, we are presented with two friends and competitors, Paul Ticklon and Lloyd Inwood. They both were intelligent, smart, and progressive scientists. But their competitiveness led them to their deaths. They tried to prove their point about invisibility. They both took different routes to prove their point, but ultimately achieved tragic results. The story is a science fiction which explores the idea of invisibility. It highlights the theme that competitiveness is good. Competitiveness brings harmful results always. Both the friends approach the idea of invisibility from two different directions. Paul approached it through making things transparent. This means that if anything does not absorb the ray of light, the light passes through it and it will then completely be transparent. Whereas Lloyd tries to create an exact black object which will absorb all light and thus become invisible. Both of them were successful in proving their point and making such objects. But they were so jealous of each other's success that they broke into fighting with each other in their invisible state of shadow and flash. And finally, they both die. So that's the short summary. Now let's look at the back exercise questions. First, A part, answer these questions with reference to context. Now I shall go on the very opposite track. Who said this and to whom? Paul said these words to Lloyd. What was being discussed? The concept of invisibility is being discussed here. What was the opposite track? So Paul's opposite track was to become invisible by making the object transparent. Right? Now let's see further. Answer these questions. What was Lloyd's theory about an object that was perfectly black? Lloyd's theory states that if the objects are perfectly black or absolutely black, we could not see them in the light as well. What was Paul's looking to obtain through his experiments? Through his experiments, he was seeking transparency, a state or quality of a body which permits all the rays of light to pass through it. So, his line of inquiry was to do away with the shadow. What would reveal Paul's position on the other side of the net to the narrator? The rainbow flash would reveal Paul's position on the other side of the net to the narrator. How did the narrator make sure of Lloyd's presence at the tennis court? In the midst of their play, close to the net, the narrator saw a ball rebound in the mid-air in empty space. He realized that Lloyd Inwood had come upon the scene, and to make it certain, he looked for his shadow, and there it was, a shapeless blotch moving along the ground. So that's how the narrator found out that Lloyd had come on the tennis court. The narrator said that he trembled for the success of either of his friends. What was it that he feared? How did his fear prove to be true? So both of his narrator's friends attacked the problem with all the tremendous energy but with bitterness. He feared that this rivalry may bring bad ends to them. This thought made the narrator tremble for the success of either. Narrator's fears proved to be true, as in the end, when both came across each other, the idea of both having the same discovery brought up their ends. Then they both ended up, they both died because the idea of their discovery, their success was not digested by the other. One could not digest the other's success, the other also could not digest the success of first person. So that's why they were always having rivalry between each other, the fight between each other. दुश्मनी जो enmity थी वो bitterness थी, वो actually दूसरे की success पे jealous थे. They were jealous of each other. So that's why they were not happy for the success. Right? Next question. What do you think happened to Paul and Lloyd by the end of the story, and what proof is available in the text to support this? So, both of them died by the end of the story, as there were no more flashes and the shadow had become long and stationary. Stationary means not moving, stable. Right? So, now discuss and write. The over-competitiveness displayed by Paul and Lloyd was beneficial in terms of scientific achievement, but harmful with respect to their own lives. How? Over-competitiveness displayed by Paul and Lloyd was beneficial in terms of scientific achievement, but harmful with respect to their own lives. This is so because when both came across each other, the idea of both having same discovery brought their end. Right? So the idea that they both have succeeded, that jealousy brought their end. Do you think all the scientific discoveries are useful to humans? Would invisibility be a beneficial or harmful discovery? Give reasons for your answer. All the scientific discoveries are useful to humans if used judiciously. If they are used wisely, they are all useful. Invisibility can be beneficial if it could be used for betterment of humanity. If we use it for the betterment of humanity, it is very beneficial. So now there are some extra questions also which I would like you to do. Well, I have begun my experiments. What did Lloyd hope to discover through his experiments? Through his experiments, Lloyd hoped to discover the right pigments and absolutely black paint which would make invisible whatever it was applied to. When does a substance appear white to be white? When does it look black? When a substance reflects all the colors to the eye, it seems to us white. And when it absorbs all the colors, it is black. What surprise awaited the narrator when he reached Lloyd's place of work? When the narrator came upon the glade where Lloyd's laboratory stood, he found no sign of the building. This meant that Lloyd has succeeded in his experiment. Few coats of absolute black on the outside of the laboratory made it invisible. What did the narrator discover when he went to meet Paul that same day? The narrator went to meet Paul in the tennis court, but he did not find him there. Suddenly, a tennis ball struck him on the arm, and as he turned about, he saw a rainbow flash appearing and disappearing and darting over the ground. This meant that Paul too has succeeded in his experiment. He had become invisible. Do you think Paul and Lloyd both succeeded in achieving perfect invisibility? Give reasons. Paul and Lloyd both succeeded in achieving invisibility, perfect invisibility, Paul using flashes of color and Lloyd using absolutely black. So that's all in this chapter. I hope you have understood everything. If you still have any difficulty, message me. Okay, thank you very much. Have a nice day.